right, good morning.
Hi! Hello.
We are in a different spot today.
Yes. So, and today I have Krista with me. Yay! She's
back together
along.
again.
I know, she's along for the ride. So, today we're on a new adventure. So last time we went and traveled all up North Georgia to on the Great Locomotive Chase.
Yep.
And because it's such a pivotal story in Marietta's history and all of Cobb County and North Georgia. And so today we decided to take a different route and head south. We're looking at the Leo Frank murder.
Well, Mary Phagan murder,
yeah,
Leo
Mary,
Frank
that's right, yeah.
trial lynching.
Yes, yes, that whole story. And we're hitting up some spots. We're trying to find some spots that are associated with that story. And of course, a lot of those spots are in downtown Atlanta.
Yeah.
So, Krista and I have hopped in the car and we're touring a different area of town than we are used to touring, but we have found a gem. A gem. Now, before we show you where we're at and get into that in a minute, I just wanted to read quickly just a little brief intro to the story for those who are really not familiar with who Mary Phagan or Leo Frank is or anything like that, and this will kind of set the scene for the rest of the day.
Well, the reason why we're doing this though is right now is because yesterday, which is Sunday, April 26th, yesterday, today's April 27th, was the actual anniversary of Mary Phagan's murder. So that's why we're doing this one right now.
Yes. Okay. So, the tragic death of Marietta's Mary Phagan and the case of Leo Frank have led to countless books, movies, music, and even a Tony Award-winning play. It is a dark spot on the history books, an ugly, unjust, and prejudiced time in Marietta's history, but one that we cannot forget. While the Great War played out overseas, America battled its own issues at home. On April 26, 1913, 13-year-old Mary Phagan was brutally murdered where she worked in Atlanta's National Pencil Factory. The investigation and trial that followed were full of corruption and hatred that most likely ended with the wrong man paying the ultimate price. Anti-Semitism ruled the day. When the family of Phagan and fellow Mariettans found out the accused Jewish man, Leo Frank, received life in prison, they decided to take matters into their own hands. On August 17, 1915, a posse organized by Marietta's elite, we'll find out more about them later, kidnapped Frank, drove him to a farm just outside the Marietta Square, and hung him from a tree. His lifeless body became a spectacle for the masses, a sideshow of degradation and inhumanity. News of this event spread nationally like a wildfire, and Marietta was scorned publicly by the New York Times, the Boston Traveler, and even President William H. Taft. Although few, if any, that's the last part of my exhibit panel. We don't need to know about the artifacts.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm reading an exhibit panel I used to have on it.
That was an exhibit we had done, I guess, about 2 or 3 years ago, maybe at this point.
On the progressive era.
The progressive era.
Time in history. So.
Real quick, we're going to walk a little bit to get in the sunshine because it's a
freezing.
little cold right here.
Let's just move around.
So we're just walking. We are actually on English Avenue in downtown Atlanta. Straight in front of us is Hollowell Parkway, formerly known as Bankhead Highway. So yeah, we are in a different area. And then we are actually in the neighborhood of Bellwood, which is the neighborhood that Mary Phagan, this is the last neighborhood she lived in before her murder. And actually where she lived is just down the street at the corner of Fox Street and Lindsay, about, I think, 3 blocks to our west, I guess.
Did we pass that intersection to see if the house is
I don't think the house is still there because there was apartment complex and then some other,
right.
but that intersection is still there. But we came over here because we saw a cool building and we needed to know more. So we're going to show you guys this building right now. Let me get myself situated. Hold on. Let's see. There we go. Let me go behind me. There we go. That building. I don't know if you guys can see it.
You know what? Actually, I want to.
As I say, I couldn't get it.
I know. At the sun, we can't see. This is how great we are. How do you flip it back? This is professional.
I don't know. Do we have to start?
Okay. We're going to go this way.
We're filling with different tech for this.
We are. We're doing using different technology, and we may not be able to flip this around easily. So, but I really want to show you guys this building. I don't think you can flip it around. Okay. All right. Look here. I'm going to turn around. Look at this amazing abandoned building. So we drove past and saw this, and I was like, stop, that's where we gotta go. And I mean, obviously, looking at the architecture, I could, you know, kind of our spidey senses told us that it was probably built at least here when Mary Phagan was alive. Yeah. And a quick Google search done by Krista pulled up a little bit of history. When did you say this was?
So this building was built in 1910. And it was an elementary school for the white children in this neighborhood. And so around 1910, Mary was actually still living in Marietta. But when, we'll tell that story in just a second, but she would have seen this school when they were living here, literally just down the street. She did not attend this school, and we'll talk about that in just a minute, but let me get my notes out.
You get your notes out. I'm gonna walk up here and then turn it back around. Krista told me I'm not allowed to go inside the building, so, you know, that's what happens when I have a chaperone. But I really want to. This is the coolest thing. So if you look behind me, though, it's got a name, and I can't really tell. It might be backwards, but I think we read that it was Ringsby School, so I'm not quite sure who that was or what it was. But it's got a cool little owl up there, probably to keep the bats and rats away, maybe. But yeah, I mean, it's just falling apart. Begging for some TLC. Just gonna walk around a little bit here. If anybody knows anybody in the Atlanta City public school system, it seems that this building is still owned by the school system. So, you know, I'm sure there's no funds available to do anything with it, but you know, we may have to call our friends down at the Atlanta History Center and see if they know anything, or the Atlanta Preservation Society. I know we've got some fans and followers who are active in that group. And this really looks like it's probably too far gone to save, but it's just so cool. And the fact that it was here, Mary probably walked past this frequently, if not daily. Her and her friends, she probably was friends with kids who went to school here. In this, at that time, brand new, beautiful building on Atlanta's west side. So I'm going to come back over here, and Chris is going to talk a little bit more about Mary Phagan and this area.
Okay, so just a second ago I made a mistake. It's okay, I don't mind.
We'll forgive her.
It's okay. I said Mary Phagan was living in 1910 in Marietta, but they were actually living in East Point. We'll get to that in just a second. So Mary Phagan, sorry, there was a kitty cat and it distracted me, my bad. So Mary Phagan is the youngest child of William Joshua Phagan and Fanny Benton. And both of those, the Bentons and the Phagans, are families from Cobb County. And they married in December of 1891. They had 2 children, son Benjamin Franklin and then Ollie Mae, so that's Mary's older sister, before moving to Florence, Alabama. They moved to Florence, Alabama with William's parents. His father was also named William, but he was William Jackson. They moved to Florence, Alabama. They are farming the land. William and Fanny have 2 more sons, Charles and William Joshua Jr. When in 1899, Fanny is pregnant with Mary, and in February of 1899, William dies after contracting measles. So Fanny is left with 4 young children, pregnant, living with her in-laws. That's a lot for a lot of people. And gives birth to Mary on June 1st, 1899, excuse me. And after she recovers from childbirth and little Mary is old enough to travel, they travel back to Cobb County probably by Christmas of that year, because in the 1900 census they're living with Fanny's family, the Bentons. And so Mary's early life is really in Cobb County, more in what was the Sardis community. Amy and I were researching that a little bit more, which is, there's a Sardis cemetery over off of Paper Mill, so kind of that east Cobb County. And then the family ends up moving to a mill town called Egan, which is actually in East Point. The mother, Fanny, opens a boarding house, two of the brothers work in the mills. Sister Ollie Mae at one point is working at Rich's. The oldest brother is working as a painter. So all the kids are working, and Mary really knows that kind of life. And in 1912, the mother remarries to a man named John Coleman, who is a cabinet maker. They moved down to this Bellwood community, which was a white working class neighborhood. Again, just like 3 blocks from where we're standing right now. And that is the community to where Mary would go from her home to the pencil factory every day to work, and her job was to use the metal to make the little portion between the pencil and the eraser, that little metal piece. That was her job, is to get that all together. And so she was making, I think, 12 cents an hour, something like that. And on April 26th, 1913, which was a Saturday, she went down to the pencil factory to collect her paycheck. She hadn't worked all week, but she wanted to get her pocket money, which I totally get. And so made her way from her home here after lunch, went down to the factory, and by the time supper came, Mary didn't come back home. So the family went over to a neighbor's house, called their extended family in Marietta to say, is Mary here? Is Mary there in Marietta? Have you seen her? And they say no, and that's when the worry starts to come in. The stepfather goes to the local movie theater, sees if they can find her, and they can't find her location. And then the next morning, on April 27th, Mary's body is found in the basement of the pencil factory, and the family is then informed of her murder. So what we will do right now is end this video and head over to the location of the pencil factory.
All right, sounds good. So I hope you guys will stick around with us for the day. Probably won't be as long of a day as I had the last one. We're not going quite as many miles, but we're going to tour a few stops in Atlanta and then head back up to Cobb County and hit a few stops there. And then, just like our last one, our last stop in Marietta will go live so that we can answer any questions you've got throughout the day and see how it went. So join us on our next stop.